everything starts with culture. And when I say culture, I don't mean demographics or ethnicities or languages or anything. Culture as a whole, it's what it's defining the new narratives and the new storytelling on everything we do.
You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the E-Marketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
I'm super excited to be catching up with Roberto Alcazar today, who's the EVP and managing partner of 305 Worldwide, which is part of Horizon Media. But before we jump into your day job, Roberto, why don't you let me know, tell us about Corazon Latino, which I saw on your LinkedIn profile.
Oh, Kevin, well, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I hope we don't get in trouble out of this conversation. I normally do. But I'm glad that we're starting with Corazon Latino. Corazon Latino is a nonprofit organization very close to that side of my career that looks purpose into many things or somehow give a lot of meaning to the things that we do and to the best of the things that we do. My first approach with Corazon Latino was many years ago. He's managing director, Felipe Benitez, is a dear friend now. But we started working together for a project that was created by the United Nations Development Fund. And the project was the creation of a documentary to create awareness about the oil exploitation in the Amazon forest in Ecuador. He brought that to me. Destiny got us together, and we did a great project down in Ecuador, where we had the opportunity to live for a month with a community that lives in voluntary isolation. We created a documentary, I Am Destiny, and so on. The project was born. It went out. We had the opportunity to screen that in many film festivals and give that back to a lot of universities that were teaching environmental classes and issues. So it was a great project. Since then, we've been together. I've been supporting Corazon Latino, and I'm a board member of Corazon Latino right now. And this is kind of a very disciplined way to give back to the Latino community in the U.S. And that's kind of my sidekick on the nonprofit side of the business, and we'll do everything we can to support their mission and the work they do.
Great. Well, kudos for doing that. Sounds like quite an adventure at the same time.
It was an amazing experience, especially because the destruction of the Amazon forest, we don't see it as important or as dramatic as it is, because we're so far away from the problem, and we sometimes don't feel that the problem actually makes an impact on us, and to be able to see that firsthand and to bring that awareness to this side of the world was very important, and I hope that it made a change at that time on the politics that were created to protect the Amazon forest.
Right. Well, one common thing that weaves through the Corazon Latino story, but also your day job, is storytelling. Like, you're a huge fan of storytelling, and you've been doing storytelling for many, many years. So I'd love for you to talk about how storytelling has changed in a marketing context since you've been in the advertising world.
Wow. I normally say I live a double life, because I come from the world of content and independent film production and narratives. But I'm equally in love with the day job that I've been doing for 25 years, which is advertising. And storytelling has changed. And look, in the marketing side, probably the biggest change was is obviously, and I know this subject will come up in a lot of times during this conversation, and how the media landscape and the media environment has changed so rapidly throughout the years. From what we used to call the pure branding element of brands wanted to carve that emotional space in the hearts of consumers and become part of their own branding, to the need for performance marketing, where you need results on an immediate pace. It is just fascinating. I don't complain about the change. I'm actually every day more curious about how it's changing. Before, storytelling was a lot of that combination of the writing and the gut feelings of brands, and we used to have to go to focus groups to realize if we're on the right path or not. Nowadays, focus groups are done like live, immediately. Social media can tell you right away what the consumer is thinking, how the brand message can resonate with consumers, even if you're not looking for those answers, you'll get them. Coming from very specific media outlets and formats that were established during the golden years of the marketing era in the US, to a landscape that the only thing for sure is that the discovery keeps going. You don't know what's around the corner. There's a new platform, a new way of communication, codes of communication, going from the written word to emojis, where you can, the evolution at the speed exponentially, how things are changing, is nothing but, for me, the best time ever during this journey. But definitely, it definitely keeps you aware that narratives are always important. Brands can still hope to carve that space in the own self-branding of consumers, and be part of it. But at the same time, you need to be relevant, and everything starts with culture. And when I say culture, I don't mean demographics or ethnicities or languages or anything. Culture as a whole, it's what it's defining the new narratives and the new storytelling on everything we do.
That's a perfect segue into my next question, which is whether or not storytelling is different for different cultural audiences, defined more traditionally from the perspective of a brand trying to reach the Latino or Hispanic audience, or a brand trying to reach a particular sub-segment or segment of the audience. Is the narrative universal, or does one need to tune the narrative to those audiences?
I think in storytelling there is a sweet spot between finding a universal interest, a love story that can be repeated anywhere in the world, and it feels relevant, it feels appropriate, it feels and it raises the same emotions and reactions from people, not consumers, from people, and then be culturally relevant to the space or the world where you live. The Latino, like when we approach like at 305 and 305 look, just for context, 305 is a result of two practices that allow us to approach everything through culture. Our founding partner, Armando Cristian Perez, better known for some people as Pitbull, brings that element of culture that he that's where he was born. That's where everything started, from him, from the streets, from people, from the gut feeling, from understanding what's going on the layers that normally marketing is not present all the time. On the other side, our other partner and another parent, Horizon Media, which for me represents access to the biggest sandbox of data and insights and analytics that allows you to measure, to combine those two worlds. What's unofficially there in culture and what the consumer is growing towards in front of the new spectrum of the media outlets that now exist. Culture is everything. Culture, and when I say culture is everything, I want to say the risk of not taking in consideration culture nowadays is the biggest threat to a brand or a brand that can sound tone deaf to what's out there in the within the consumer's mind. The consumer is not waiting for brands to tell them what to do or to guide them on what to do. The consumer is adopting brands on their own lifestyle, and those brands that resonate with what they're living are the ones that are making sense. Stay the longer with them.
Absolutely. I agree with that. One thing that certainly is rumored to be happening over the years that we've been in advertising is that attention spans are getting shorter, right?
Mhm.
We used to be able to create 60-second TV spots. Now, an entire, mini movie is 60 seconds. So
Yeah.
how do we deal with, as creative people, and you're far more creative than I am, trust me, how do you, are attention spans getting shorter, and does one need, as a creative person getting messages out to the audience, to think that through as you craft your messages?
Yes, it is. I remember not that long ago. I don't want to age myself. I remember the first time I saw like around 15 years ago, managing a global account, and we were watching what Japan was doing at the time. And Japan, for the first time, when we were still with the 30s and 60s narratives, Japan was doing 6 seconds and 3 seconds, and we were like, "No, this is insane." Well, it didn't take that long to filter down to our own culture. Attention spans are getting shorter, or are getting smaller, or getting briefer. You need to get to the point really quick, but there is also the opportunity to create, a great narrative with limited times. There is one of the best pages that I follow is 60 seconds documentaries, and I don't know if you haven't, please take a look. It's an Instagram account, 16-second documentaries. It is amazing what these new breed of creators are doing nowadays to compress and to being able to give you what you need to know in such a short period of time. All depends on the brand. All depends on their purpose. It all depends on the narratives that they create in the place that they carve within the consumer's minds and hearts. When you already adopt a brand that don't need to tell you more, for you to know what they're talking about, or to make sure that they come across with the right message for you. A brand that doesn't own that mind share within consumers, they have a tougher. They probably need to make sure that they create their own narrative, and they establish themselves in a very way, because you can feel it now. There are brands that are noise. There is a lot of advertising that is just noise, that is part of the spec, that is there, that is supposed to be there, the pre-rolls, and when messaging are just becoming part of the noise, it gets harder for brands to really come across within any message.
Yeah,
you feel it every day.
That's a great point. What's fascinating to me is, simultaneously with brands and agencies being able to boil messages down shorter and yet still have them be effective, you have this counter trend where long video ads are also being successful. You see them sometimes on YouTube or Facebook. They're typically called VSLs or video sales letters, and they're old infomercial style, right? Pieces of marketing content, and they tell a really long hero's journey type story, right? And so to have those coexist with the super short creative, message formats is fascinating to me, because it sort of proves that sometimes you can take advantage of a long period of time to tell a story. And if it's engaging enough, if you hook them in early enough, people will wait for the whole thing.
Yeah. There are best practices that comes from different schools, that says, you need to have your product. You have to have your product show up right away. There are other schools that, for every case that supports that theory, there's another case that not necessarily aims to have an immediate recognition, especially when brands have a heavyweight presence in popular culture. Like when you're the Nikes and the Apples of the world, you probably need few words in order for people to come across with the right and the right message. When you're not, you go back to the books and say, okay, yeah, you need to show up and make sure that your message come across. No one is right, no one is wrong. Like that doesn't depend. It depends on the best, I guess, and I trust on the advice of where are you on your position, where are you on your branding, in order to have the luxury or not to create narratives that could be a little different for consumers.
One other thing that struck me as I was trying to come up with questions to ask you is that during our period in advertising, the screens on which video advertising were going to play simultaneously got gigantic and very small, right? And I'm so glad I'm not an art director, because I have no idea how I would deal with that. So how do you deal with that as a creative director or an art director? I
love the variety of now, when you go to the biggest screen, like, okay, with biggest screens, you're talking, the major tentpoles of entertainment possible. Like there are some movies that you don't want to see anywhere else but the big screen. Then there is a big chunk of content that you see in the traditional screen, but there's the one that is very personal to you, which is your own phone, which is basically an extension of your most private and most. And when I say private, is yourself, your true self, on the things that you want to share. And I find that fascinating, the relationship that we have established with our own phones and how that is becoming an extension of everything we don't say, but we are. And I love when a brand or a message can come through those elements. I find fascinating that you see babies or kids 2-3 years old, and they found a real life magazine. They tried to screen it like like if it was the iPad. I see that this is. I don't think that that's the ultimate stage. I think media and media consumption and screens are going to get closer and closer to the human being and the human reality from now on. Everything changes, and there's nothing more interesting that learn how to become part of that inner space with the consumer, because the opportunity to be there, when you have the right and the permission to access that world, is when you can tell that you're doing the right job for your narrative, for your clients, for a brand, for anything that gets included in that inner world of consumers.
Yeah, that absolutely. One reason that I was super excited that you're part of Horizon Media is because I'm a huge fan of right message, right time, right audience, and so that means that media choices that are being made have potentially an impact on the creative that you put in those media channels or in against the specific audience. So how do you think about achieving that nirvana, right? That nirvana of the right message at the right time to the right person, which breaks through the noise, because you were talking about the noise earlier. And you need the right message at the right time to the right audience, or you are the part of the noise.
There was a for us at Nirvana I think I barely mentioned I surely mentioned it at the beginning is that combination of culture and data. One of my mentors in this business always told me, and this is something that I carry more as a joke, but as an approach, and we always go, in God we trust. Everyone else must bring the data, and that is obviously it's a play on words and it's a joke, but the power of getting ahead of that with this big muscle and data and analytics, that horizon mindfully brings to the creative opportunity. We are a creative sandbox within this sea of data. Let me put it in some other words. Data is if you see data and analytics, the ones and zeros of the binary code, that brings a lot of information. Us as creatives, we're like emojis inserted in that data. And at the beginning, doesn't feel right. At the beginning, I can tell you, emojis and ones and zeros kind of need to find their way to communicate among each other. But when they do, the opportunity to tap into the message that is absolutely relevant in time and in place for consumers is hard to beat it. And that's a bet. That's a bet and that for me is the advantage of having this creative shop inside of this sea of data and analytics and information that guides you throughout the process and that retrofits the idea, and you go back and tell. And I talk to my partners on the media side and said, okay, this is the idea. There's nothing left to a chance or to luck into how we plan the media outlet, the media language that we're gonna infuse in any message that we do. And when those two, the binaries and ones and zeros and the emojis are working together and understand their own language, is when magic happens. That has been resonating with the clients that we're growing, the clients that are trusting us with their business, and I'm glad to report that seems to be working.
Great. Well, one other thing that comes up a lot when you have conversations about digital media in particular, but even with TV, is sort of ad creative burnout. And data is obviously something that informs knowing whether or not your creative needs to be rotated, right? And that could be individual creatives, like a specific spot, or it could be actually creative campaigns thematically, right? The ones that are hopefully resonating with culture. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, how do you know when your creative is burning out?
You know what? I'm a fan, and I'm a fan of performance. I'm a fan of, but that has to do in what stage of the communication you are and what are you trying to accomplish. I challenge everything, whether I know or whether I do think I know or not the answer. Part of my role is to challenge why things are happening. I have to admit that sometimes both clients and agencies, get tired of their own campaign quicker than what the consumer does, because they've been doing it, they've been exposed to that every day as part of their jobs, and probably not the consumer. I love performance when we have the opportunity to learn in real time what message is performing better, the A/B test. Okay, this is performing better, change and pivot, and always look for performance. That's when you're looking for immediate results. But now I bring my challenge and said, not everything needs to be based on that. Branding cannot be created on that noise without the brand being relevant to the core of what your personal branding is. There are brands that don't need performance or there are not everything or becomes part of the consumer just because a client wants to get immediate results. And that has to do a lot with the environment that we all live nowadays, in search of the immediate results. And that has to do with people. That has to do with even our own positions in marketing. When clients, and let me put an imaginary space. CMOs nowadays, if you see the data, the lifespan of a CMO nowadays is 2 to 3 years in every company. Before it was 10 years, 15 years. And what do you do in 2 or 3 years? You need to perform right away. When you get that job, you better make sure that your first campaign performs immediately. And sometimes you need to know where you stand on the branding side of your own product, because you can do a great job performing for the first 2 years, but are you really doing it on the branding side, on carving such a strong brand that will stay with the consumer regardless, of what they do? I try to see everything, and I try to challenge everything by nature. So I said, are we in search of the performance for the sake of it, or because our own lives as consumers working in this industry needs for us that everybody wants to build something, grow up, sell it. I'm talking about the marketing industry. I'm talking about the business industry. Everybody wants to just, build and sell, And I'm being very, simplistic on this assumption. But when I see the frenzy of how lives take us right now in the world of business, in the world of marketing, so is this the right? Are we doing things for with the right purpose in mind, or what is, are we trying to save ourselves from the burden of this inner force that bring us down all the time? I know I'm getting away to more philosophical space to answer the answer of burning out a campaign.
It's actually perfect though for my next question, right? Because when there's either a recession or rumors of a recession, right, the CMOs and CFOs get even more performance focused. And so, your former answer was about how branding should not be a luxury that you choose to pass on. It's still foundational, right? So ignore it at your own risk, I think, is my take on that, right? You can ignore branding and just quadruple down on performance, but you're risking your brand when you do that. Right?
There is a balance between one or the other. I'm not saying that you cannot live only with water or with food. You need both of them. It's the balance. But when you only try to justify one side of the equation, you forget that people still feel and like things and change, and this is a nugget of it. The moment your brand becomes a commodity, it's done, because a commodity always gets replaced by a new shiny thing. When I hear now, I'm an expert on, this brand only becomes, social media experts, TikTok, social. Like there is always something else coming along the way. Like there was Instagram, now there's TikTok. There's going to be tuk-tuk in a couple of months. There is going to be something else driven by the consumer experience and their own consumer culture. But you cannot forget what your brand is in order to become that persona that you're going to be with consumers. And when, again, I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm not saying that only branding is what you need to do, because now the problem with branding is that, if you're a brand like Coca-Cola or Nike or Apple that have $200 billion to get your message out, you're not worried about immediate results. That's not the case with all the brands that need to carve their own space. So that's the beautiful, the sweet spot of what we cannot forget. So that's where I keep being curious
Right.
and keep trying to find our own and guiding our own team to don't settle for for any pre-established assumption on whether we go one way or the other.
So creative either happens at an individual level or a team level at agencies, and sometimes agencies, especially some of the older agencies, they're named after the creative director, right? I mean, you'd see the name of the agency, be like, oh, that must be the creative director's name, right? And so and they were sort of the head chef of the kitchen, right? But then if they have to figure out how to get their teams to also be creatives, so where's that balance? Like, how do you simultaneously have sort of visionary creative directors or art directors and teams that can sort of layer in there and be their own superstars creatively?
Look, I have nothing but the utmost respect and always having my guiding light, the big names of these guys, David, Droga, White, and Kennedy. All these references that you always name when you want to point to an example of what is great. Obviously, Lee Clow and Chai, they didn't need the name of Lee Clow, but everybody knows that was the guy in charge. But all of them understood that the work is not coming up with the idea. The work is about connecting dots and know where to find those ideas. And it's about the people that you surround with. David, Droga, White, and Kennedy, they knew how to get surrounded by the best. And that has been always a secret sauce. That's when I had the opportunity to jump from the creative side. I come from the creative side to the managing partner, to managing side. The first thing I did is I call some of these big names, the colleagues, the creatives that have done the same job, and I ask them straight away, okay, where I'm going to screw up? What are the things that I need to focus on? Where are the mistakes that I'm going to do right away, being a creative and wanting to shine as a creative? And they all kind of put the same examples on this is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to do right. And this is what you need to do. Surround with the best. The best idea always comes from that intuition. The only thing that we can bring to the table is that intuition on where is the idea and knowing when we're missing the big idea out of instinct, and know how to get it out from the right combination of people. So it is always about the team. And I'm not saying this because I have a great team. It is because if you're smart, our job is to connect the dots. It's not to come up with the idea. And I'm going to, give you this example because I also want to make sure that I mention him because he's one of my biggest mentors in this business. When you talk back to culture and what is relevant, one of the biggest creatives that was a creative director that has grown, his own agency within the global footprint is Luis Miguel Messianou. He started as with a small agency to tap into the multicultural Hispanic market in the U.S. called Alma. Then Alma was acquired by GDB. Luis Miguel, when he got on top of the operation and started running that, he discovered that everything had to do with the team, and he surrounded himself with the best of the best. Luis Miguel is now the global creative director for McDonald's. He's not the Hispanic creative director for McDonald's. He's not the U.S. creative director for McDonald's. He's a global creator for one of the biggest brands in the universe of our times. That has to do with that instinct, his ability to surround himself with the best of the best, and bringing culture to the forefront on a 24/7 schedule. So that is kind of a nugget how I summarize the beautiful moment that we're living right now in marketing, the understanding of brands to get to approach in that way and to find that perfect balance. Things are going to keep changing.
I love that. I love those examples, and absolutely super fascinating to have watched some of those creative minds and know that they were teams, right? They weren't just the figureheads. So what has you excited about the next year? And obviously AI is a big buzzword, but that may not be what's exciting to you. So I'd love to hear what has you excited.
It is exciting. It is exciting. In AI is, well, let's not go to the philosophical stage. Oh my God, the Matrix, we're nothing. We are nothing but a battery, Kevin. That's it. We are batteries on the Matrix. No, I think there is with all the narrative creative on surrounding AI, AI is becoming, look, like always, AI is becoming a narrative that you can see immediately the effects that are going to have, for example, on the media side of the business, because, for example, when I mentioned programmatic, and programmatic, when you need to create layers or criteria to evaluate consumers and have humans trying to evaluate those criteria, they still have to go to sleep after 8 hours of work daily. The computer don't need to go to sleep, and while you are creating 20 criteria of how to evaluate your consumer, the computer is evaluating 120 or 150 different ones and putting them together. Is that the path that we're going to go through? Yeah, I think so. On the creative side, yeah, the chat GPTs and all that stuff are alleviating and putting together a great tool of resources to expedite the creative process. But the discipline on getting to know the individual needs of every brand, the stage where they are, from the same production of whatever their product is to when it hits the streets to the consumer, all those elements that are not only related to marketing, but sales, by shopper, by branding, by media, all this narrative that you need to create. I think we have still space because we until the day they can feel and feel AI can feel as a human. There's some elements about this narrative that can only put together by feeling the experience and nothing else. On the other side, some of my team, for the first time ever, this for us is becoming a very exciting experiment. For the first time since a year ago, 2 years ago, all my job descriptions for my junior teams, 20% at least of their job description or the day-to-day task involves learning. I want for them to learn the most they can about every single platform that is out there. Like, it is their duty to learn and to be trained into what technology can do, how it can alleviate our business, how can we create products and solutions for our clients that are more, relevant to the times that we're living, and how we keep creating a narrative using the best of what technology brings about. I'm not naive of the uses that or the implications of what AI can bring to us. I'm just embracing it. Like, this has been always my way. Don't fight it. Embrace it. Everything brings a new day and a new dawn. So I'm all for it. I look forward to it, and I try to learn better than anybody else about that, because there is a moment when you're going to have to teach to put it in practice before somebody that don't have the I try to control the narrative on that stage. Basically.
Yeah, it is super exciting. And I think part of what's exciting to me is as a tool in my sort of digital marketing and traditional marketing tool chest, every time I reach for AI as a tool, it's a little bit different, right? They keep upgrading it, they keep adjusting it, right? And so you have to sort of relearn the tool every time you touch it because it's a little bit different, a little bit more powerful. And that's really fascinating as an entrepreneur and as a business person and as a marketing mad scientist, right? It's the ultimate laboratory for me.
By all means, and by the way, we're using it. We're putting it in every single environment. Like we write or we take write-ups from famous people or from even the other day I asked my team, can you write a love letter to let's write love letters to our dear ones. And put the criteria and the elements of our own experience and that. Let's see how it goes. Like we're trying to explore everything. We want to make sure that we know if the potential is always valued by the solution that they bring to you at any given moment. The more you can control that narrative, the better. And obviously, I'm sure you've seen all these examples about, how they're going to control us, like the Black Mirror effect. Everybody's talking about Black Mirror, and they keep coming with the examples. Well, I guess.
It's a tool. It's a very sharp tool, and it can be used for good or evil. It's a knife in your kitchen.
Definitely. So here's where we are, Kevin, and once again, I appreciate it. I love when we get to sit down and talk because every time we talk, I realize that so many things happen in between that I have to voice out for the first time many of those experiences. And I said, well, that's the fascinating thing about all this. Like it's never the same. There is no formula. And if we're still here, it's because we have the capacity to adapt and to change and to realize that we're on a train that cannot be stopped.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Roberto, it's been an absolute pleasure discussing these topics with you and getting your insights. Thanks so much for joining me.
Anytime, and I look forward to our next one to see how much it has changed from 1 year to another. I'm sure we will be talking about so many different things and probably laughing at some of the stuff that we said before. So I look forward to it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.